Okay, Mitt Romney is proposing a piece of legislation here that would basically permanently exempt corporations who make their profits overseas from paying U.S. taxes. Seems to me like that would encourage them to make more things overseas and keep their money overseas. What am I missing here? Curtis Dubay is a senior policy analyst in tax policy at the Heritage Foundation, heritage.org. Curtis, welcome back to the program.
Glad to be here.
Center for American Progress says Romney's tax plan is going to kill 800,000 U.S. jobs. How does it help us to say to transnational corporations, if you manufacture things outside the United States, you don't have to pay taxes?
Well, first of all, it shows the depths of the Obama campaign's desperation that they had to rely on a study from a campaign contributor. That the person who wrote that study, the New York Times, who touted it and said agreed with the conclusions, they have it exactly backwards. If we went to what the President Obama's proposing, which is taxing the worldwide profits of all of our businesses, we'd end up killing more jobs. The proper treatment.
Well, wait a minute. Germany does that. South Korea does that. Taiwan does that. Japan does that. China does that. I don't see any of those countries having problems with their with.
They don't do that to the extent that we do it. They
do it massively more than we do it. Most of it they do with value-added taxes, but they do it massively more than we do.
You can't conflate the two. You can't talk about value-added tax on one hand.
You absolutely can.
Corporate income tax.
They're applying VAT taxes to things made outside their country. It's a form of tariff.
They border adjust them. That's different. We're talking about the corporate income tax. We don't have a VAT. So
that's what I'm talking about. A border adjusted VAT is a tariff. I mean, if we're not going to have VAT taxes, we should at least have tariffs. But to say that we should have no taxes, that's crazy.
You were misinformed on a VAT, but that is not the discussion. The discussion is the corporate income tax. We are the outlier when it comes around the world when it comes to taxing our businesses on the income they earn for products and services they sell abroad. We'd be much more competitive
as federal income tax
back here if we went to what every other country does, which is only tax our businesses on the income they earn within our borders.
Well, if you want to add to that a VAT tax, like all those countries that I just listed, or actually most of those countries have variations on import taxes. Sometimes they're called fees, sometimes they're called duties. They have domestic content rules in all of those countries except one. I mean, we're doing none of that. We're doing no rational trade stuff whatsoever. You've got American corporations, American-based transnational corporations sitting on $2 trillion inside the United States, $3 trillion outside the United States. They're not bringing back because they don't want to pay taxes on it. Shouldn't we be saying to American-based corporations, if you want to call yourself an American corporation, GE, then start making things in America. General Electric made more than half their revenue outside the United States last year. They're not an American company.
Well, was that a bad thing that an American company is selling lots of products around the world? We should be encouraged by that, especially because a business
not if they're paying no taxes here, and yet they're using our court system and our military to protect their shipping lanes and to enforce their contracts.
Put the taxes aside for a second. They're employing lots of American workers. That's a very good thing. We should be encouraged by that. We want them to employ more.
Come on. Jack Welch brags in his autobiography about how back in the early 1980s he was over in India, to sell a power plant to the Indians. He was the CEO of General Electric, and he looked around and said, "Hey, look at all these people. They speak English. Why am I paying anybody to do my bookkeeping? And why am I paying anybody to answer the phone?" And he started proudly, still brags about it to this day, proudly, the process of outsourcing pink and white collar jobs. And then that's a good thing?
The logical conclusion of what you're proposing, which is to tax the worldwide profits of, say, GE at the time they're earned. What would be the result? We wouldn't have American companies. They would just pull up stakes and they'd move.
The result would be that GE would split into a number of companies. GE's European operations would become a European-based company, and by the way, they would be paying taxes in Europe. GE's Australian operations would become, an Australian corporation. They would be paying taxes in Australia. And GE in the U.S. might actually pay something in taxes. They paid no taxes last year, No federal income taxes. Or the year before that. Or the year before that.
All years after the big 2007 crash, if you want big corporations to pay more taxes, get the economy going again. Get their profits going up, and they'll still pay lots of taxes.
We have the second lowest effective tax rate, actually paid corporate income tax rate in the developed world. The second lowest. We may have the top at 35%. We may have the top rate that we point to and brag about. But in fact, corporations in the United States pay on average around 7%.
I'm not sure where you got that, because usually the studies show that our effective tax rate is still in the top 5 compared to developed countries.
No, it is not. If you look at the OECD standards, we are number 2 in the OECD.
I think you're probably looking at as the terms of gross domestic product. But remember, we're different than every other country. We have pass-through entities. Other countries don't have those. You have to add those in to get an apples-to-apples comparison.
We have what?
Flow-through, S corporations, LLCs, partnerships.
Oh, pass-throughs.
Pass-throughs, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and maybe not. I mean, those corporate forms exist pretty much all around the world and have grown dramatically since the 80s. But the other thing is that if you go back to the Eisenhower years, a little over 30% of all federal revenues were from corporate income taxes. Right now, it's less than 10% of all federal revenues are from.
The change in corporation forms. A lot of the income shifted over to the individual side.
Right. So the Koch brothers call some of their companies, sub-S companies, oh, it's a small business, right? And we just put it on our personal income taxes.
S corps, partnerships, LLCs, all those things. It's not just the Koch brothers doing it. It's not some nefarious device. There's nothing wrong with having a flow-through entity. It's a legitimate way to incorporate a business. You have lots of them.
But let's tax people reasonably. Let's tax those businesses or those people reasonably at that.
They pay tax. They don't escape any taxation.
No, if you call it carried interest, you pay a maximum 15% income tax.
That's different. This is business income earned through flow-throughs.
That's how Mitt Romney does it.
Well, he's earning carried interest. I'm talking about the business itself. I'm not talking about an individual investor.
Well, arguably that's a pass-through. I mean, but we're way down in the weeds. I mean, let's pull out and look at this thing from 50,000 feet. Why shouldn't we simply say to an American-based corporation, if you want to incorporate in this country, if you want use of our military to defend your products, if you want use of our worldwide copyright and patent police, and they are worldwide, it's a huge cost to the federal government. If you want use of our court systems to defend those things, your patents and your trademarks around the world, then you're going to have to pay taxes in the United States.
Well, U.S. companies that are headquartered here pay lots of tax here in the U.S. And the reason what we want
not on their overseas operations where we're still defending them. We go to China and we have government officials from the United States going to China, running around looking for fake Apple products, and yet Apple is not paying U.S. income taxes on their profits in China.
Well, we want businesses to grow and add more workers here in the U.S. That's the ultimate goal. That's what we want.
So let's bring our jobs back home.
If their products are in demand around the world, they'll grow back here. The research has coalesced around this kind of common sense fact. If Apple's selling more iPads over in China or around the world, they're going to end up employing more people back here because chasing that demand, they're going to end up employing more American workers.
Then why is it that the Fortune 500 companies have been shedding employees for over 2 decades?
Look,
they have been laying off. For every American they lay off, they hire 2.2 people outside the United States. This has been going on for 20 years.
I haven't seen
ever since
that
NAFTA and CAFTA and SHAFTA.
I'm not sure where you got that, but again, it's never a bad thing when a U.S. company is finding more demand for its products abroad. It's selling more of its stuff. That means job growth back here.
If it's made here, I agree with you. If it's a U.S.-based company making things in China and selling things in Taiwan and paying no U.S. profit on it, I don't see where's the benefit to the United States is.
To meet that demand, to make those products, I guarantee you that if they're headquartered in the U.S., they're growing jobs back here because the capabilities to do that expansion are centered.
No, the principal thing for that expansion is that you've got expanded needs for bookkeeping. GE has outsourced that to India. You know, Jack Welch brags about it. You got customer service. GE and other companies brag about the fact that they outsourced that to the Philippines and to India. You've got what else? What else do you need? Engineers. Apple's building engineering centers in China right now.
I've got a whole list of them. I mean, there's lots of different functions that end up at a corporate headquarters. Executive services, business services, accounting,
so the CEOs
finance,
are making
legal.
a bunch of money, but
there's a lot.
Accounting and finance,
a lot of other things besides CEOs.
Okay, well, Curtis Dubay, people can read all about it over at heritage.org. Senior policy analyst for the Heritage Foundation. Curtis, thanks for dropping by today.
Thank you.
Good talking with you. We'll be back.